Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this bulletin, we will be exploring how Ghana's dash to the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea to settle its maritime boundary dispute with Togo will affect the country's offshore oil and gas activities. We'll be live with an energy expert. Also in this bulletin, Ghana Revenue Authority to monitor retail transaction in real time. How real-time sales tracking impacts small and medium-sized retailers across Ghana. We will be discussing that. Plus, President John Mahama reiterates his government's administration of making a deliberate effort to create a conducive environment for industrial growth as he commissions B5 Plus Limited steel manufacturing plant.
Sector confidence, infrastructure investment, skilled labor, and regional integration. So today's commissioning signals that Ghana is moving on the right path.
Also in this bulletin, we will be telling you how the U.S. Supreme Court rules that President Donald Trump violated federal law when he unilaterally imposed sweeping tariffs across the globe. Details of these and more coming your way all in a moment. This day. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojobaka. I look now at our stories. Mixed reactions have greeted Ghana's quest to dash to the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea to settle its maritime boundary dispute with Togo after 8 years of unsuccessful negotiations. According to a statement from the presidency, the government is seeking a resolution to prevent further tensions and promote peaceful relations with Togo. Some experts believe that resolving the dispute could unlock the Keta Basin for potential oil exploration, boosting investments in the region. Benjamin Insian is the Executive Director of the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. He joins me via Zoom for a conversation on the back of this developing story. Benjamin, thank you so much for staying on to speak to us here on Business Live. First off, how could this boundary arbitration affect Ghana's offshore oil and gas activities, you would say? Unmute for me, Benjamin.
Sorry. Thank you very much. This is a very strategic intervention to ensure legal certainty within our maritime boundaries that also enhances or ensures some form of investment to our natural resource within this ecosystem. I think that when there are issues of legal conflicts, right? Most investors may not want to explore certain areas within this maritime boundary, especially when there's an issue of a dispute. But if you're able to get a finality, it risks investment into these areas and ensure that any FDI inflows or any foreign investor who may want to explore these resources are able to do so.
But are there valuable energy reserves in this disputed area we're talking about?
There could be, because there's data to support that part of our Tano Basin stands eastwards towards the maritime boundary with Togo. And we can only define resource based on exploration, but the data supports that there could be some form of resource available. But in terms of commerciality, we just have to explore and develop and be able to determine whether there's commerciality or not.
But could this impact deals with international energy companies, you think?
There could be an impact, especially positive impact, if were able to get to the end of this. I quite remember when that issue of Ivory Coast happened, there were some investors who didn't want to come into this country with their investment. But after there was that finality, we got most of these investors using our potential surface infrastructure to tap in these resources. So if there's finality to this matter with Togo, I believe that there'll be more investors into the country. And we critically need it at a time that our production is declining.
What risk does a delayed resolution pose for Ghana's energy supply in this instance?
For now, I think that the ESOS has not much proven reserves until further explorations are done. So there's not much data to support that. But with Westwards, I think that we'll continue to attract the needed investment if able to review our petroleum acts, especially the exploratory act, we're able to review it to attract new investment. I think that will surely help. So I believe that this may not have any impact in the short term with respect to our ability to attract investment. But in the medium term, if we're able to bring finality to it, there will be more investment into our oil exploration.
Benjamin, ultimately, how might the outcome influence regional energy cooperation with Togo?
I think that arbitration is the best, is very just because it's not going to be defined by us. There's likely going to be some commissions made by both countries, and I believe that through this particular arbitration, countries will understand that any decision that comes from this international body will be fair to both parties, and that will even improve cooperation because parties will know that none wanted to take advantage of the other in terms of this maritime dispute. And I believe that it is even likely going to enhance more cooperation between these two countries.
Benjamin Isia, thank you so much for your time this very moment. I'm glad. Now, let's stay a while longer within the upstream petroleum sector because Parliament has ratified a memorandum of understanding between government, GNPC, and other contractor parties to extend the West Cape 3 Points and Deepwater Tunnel petroleum agreements, respectively, from 2034 to 2036 to 31st December 2040. Now, the agreements include a commitment of $2 billion of additional investments into the two contract areas, which will include the drilling of at least 10 and up to 20 new wells, with a development of necessary subsea infrastructure to support continued oil and gas production in the Jubilee and 10 fields. Technical advisor to the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, has been explaining what this means to Ghana's upstream petroleum sector.
What the extension means is that it brings a lot of certainty within the upstream space in terms of the investment drive. Remember, not too long ago, our partners, the Jubilee partners, GNPC with the Jubilee partners, they have promised actually to invest closer to $2 billion within our production portfolio. And what that will mean is that this $2 billion is not sitting down as hard cash for them to go and pick it up and come and invest. They also have to go and see lenders. And so I see that this kind of extension will give a lot of momentum and credibility to whatever lending procedure that they want to undertake to unlock this $2 billion investment within the upstream. And so if we manage to get the investment done and done well as planned, which I think the Jubilee and the Jubilee partners are on course to doing that, we're going to have a lot of improvement within the upstream. We should be able to arrest the decline or minimize the rate at which the decline is happening within the upstream if you fall through with this kind of investment.
Now, to one other leading stories we are following up for you. Following the passage of the new VAT Act, the Ghana Revenue Authority has announced plans to implement the Physical and Electronic Devices Act later this year. GRA Commissioner Anthony Kwesi-Sapon said the new law will enable the installation of physical devices at retail outlets to monitor transactions, enhance compliance, and boost VAT collection across the country. I'm joined on Zoom by Ato Maika, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Maverick Research Ghana. Ato, thank you so much for staying on to speak to us here on Business Live. And one would want to explore how will the real-time sales tracking impact small and medium-sized retailers across the country?
Thank you, Pius. This the new VAT, the new protocol by GRA definitely would have some good sides, right? So compliance would definitely we see more and more retail outlets looking to comply. But the massive effect will definitely be on how many would actually transition to do that, right? So if they're passing on the VAT expense, who's going to eat the cost? Are they are others going to charge it, and kind of are they going to increase prices to make up for margins that will be impacted, right? If we think of the Ghana retail the landscape, we have closely about 250,000 retail outlets across the country that deal with FMCG goods. If we're looking at specifically the more viable ones in that context, we put it around 60,000, right? So we're looking at a swath of about 60,000 plus retail outlets that would fall under this new rule. And mind you, there is a $500,000 threshold that these outlets needs to meet in order to then qualify to kind of track sales and have some tax relief from that perspective. So we definitely see an impact on pricing, because compliance stores were most likely to pass on these costs, which didn't used to be before. And then obviously they would have to face competition from other smaller outlets that are not complying in that.
And so I want you to walk us through the challenges retailers are likely to face in upgrading their systems to comply with the Electronic Devices Act.
Well, the first thing is the cost of actually acquiring these devices. There have to be some internet costs associated with it. There would have to be training costs associated with it in order to comply. So these are all additional costs that comes. That would have to be borne by the retailer to a great extent to do that, and these costs would obviously eat into profits, right? In that sense, so that these type of costs would definitely impact them in that sense. And who knows? I mean, does that mean more and more retailers would basically give up and say, you know what, this is not worth it, given the size of business that I do, or how am I going to absorb the cost in light of other cost input, electricity, water increasing as well?
But really, how might this reform affect the divide between the formal and informal retail operators in Ghana largely?
I think it brings them closer, right? So for those that comply and those that upgrade their systems, the benefit will be huge, right? So in terms of shrinkage, in terms of actual accounting and processes from that standpoint, these monitoring sales and putting in place the right accounting systems definitely helps with them, and definitely would put in systems and structures that can help them scale. It would obviously then, with such systems in place, they can offer coupons and other incentives, discounts that bigger retailers can work with them to basically channel the stuff if you have these systems in place, right? So if you go to any of the Melcoms, etc., they're able to offer discounts and all those things and coupons, right? Because they have these systems in place. But now, if a lot of these retailers comply, they will obviously have to have these electronic systems and accounting systems in place. That then enables, opens up the possibility for them to bridge the gap between formal retail and informal retail. So the story is not all that. It's not necessarily bleak in that sense. There's definitely the upside to it. In terms of much, much smaller retail outlets, that's where we see the gap even widening, right? So if I don't really make that much enough money, I don't make enough sales for me to absorb all these costs of devices, internet, etc., then I'm not really going to. There's no need or incentive to really scale and grow from that perspective, right? And so For those that comply, it would bridge the gap between formal and informal. For the much smaller long tail, which I would estimate around 150,000 outlets across the country, we'll probably see more of a widening gap.
In a minute, beyond the VAT collection, what opportunities do real-time transaction data create for manufacturers and distributors?
I think that is an absolute gold mine, right? And I think that it definitely helps in terms of data for them to use for management reporting and other KPIs that really is hard to come by in the current environment. So that definitely helps in that context. However, I would also say that there's definitely how do we know from either under reporting or any trend standpoint, right? Because if I compare the just released November 2025 retail sales data from JRA, it showed a 10% contraction in retail sales, right? But if I look at all other sources, it shows overall FMCG retail increasing, double digit, at least from an inflationary, from a value standpoint.
All right.
We at Maverick, we see that in the 20%, right, versus 2024. So there's that aspect of it that would need to be reconciled and really understand how to triangulate the GRI data with other independent third-party measurement to as well. But on a net basis, it really presents and is a first step in actually getting really good management data for manufacturers and brand owners in Ghana.
CEO of Maverick Research Ghana, Atumeka, thank you so much for your time and have a lovely weekend. You're still watching Business Live. Let's pause for a read. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Business Live. President John Mahama has stated that Ghana is on the right path towards industrialization and cross-border trade. He emphasized that government is making a deliberate effort to create a conducive environment for industrial growth and enhance Ghana's competitiveness in global trade. He made these remarks at the commissioning of the B5 Plus Limited steel manufacturing plant in Pram Pram.
We've been engaged in fiscal reform in order to support industry and business. In the 2026 budget, we've introduced measures that directly benefit manufacturers. We abolished the COVID-19 health recovery levy. We reduced the effective VAT rate from 21.9% to 20%. We've introduced digital VAT monitoring systems, and we're reviewing the income tax, customs, and excise regimes. As host of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, Ghana has a responsibility to demonstrate that continental integration can deliver tangible results. Regional trade must move beyond speeches and communiques. Regional trade must translate into factories exporting to neighboring countries. And B5 Plus is a practical demonstration of that effort. Ladies and gentlemen, industrial transformation does not happen overnight. It is a process, and it requires strategic policy, a stable macroeconomy, private sector confidence, infrastructure investment, skilled labor, and regional integration. So today's commissioning signals that Ghana is moving on the right path.
Meanwhile, at the same event, Chief Executive of B5 Plus Limited, Mukesh Mathwani, stated that the company is committed to partnering with government to build a self-resilient economy and support the 24-hour economy and the Big Push agenda.
B5 Plus is not waiting for the 24-hour economy. We are already operating within it with your blessings. We stand ready to expand capacity, save millions in foreign exchange, create thousands of additional jobs, deepen local beneficiation, position Ghana as a steel and fabrication hub in West Africa, and ready to contribute momentarily to the Big Push agenda. We are prepared to partner government fully in building a self-reliant industrial Ghana. Ghana has the resources, Ghana has the entrepreneurs, Ghana has the industrial ambition. Under your leadership, Your Excellency, Ghana can move from being merely a mining country to becoming a mining-powered industrial nation.
To some business news beyond our shores, the U.S. Supreme Court has today ruled that President Donald Trump violated federal law when he unilaterally imposed sweeping tariffs across the globe, striking laws for the White House on an issue that has been central to the president's foreign policy and economic agenda. The decision is arguably the most important loss the second Trump administration has sustained. The consecutive Supreme Court, which last year repeatedly sided with the president in a series of emergency rulings on immigration, the firing the leaders of independent agencies and deep cuts to government spending. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, and the court agreed 6-3 that the tariffs exceeded the law. The court, however, did not say what should happen to the more than $130 billion in tariffs that have already been collected. Now, the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Greater Samuel Amegayibo, has dismissed concerns that the proposed rent bill could discourage investment in Ghana's real estate sector. Speaking on the ongoing rent debate, Mr. Amegayibo insisted that the reform should not be seen as a setback for investors, but rather as a sign of a maturing and well-regulated policy market.
For me, it shouldn't change anything. It shouldn't change anything. People who want to invest there cannot tell me that because they will not be allowed to collect so much rent advance and so they won't go into it. That will be unbusinesslike. In business, you look at your environment, you look at the laws that are in the business, and then you play your game according to the law. You cannot come and change the law just to suit your peculiar interests, but study what the regulations are, study what is in your environment, study what is available, and then you strategize and move on. I think it shouldn't be a deterrent at all. It should rather be a motivation. At least Ghana is becoming serious. Ghana wants to go, now wants to be serious with enforcing what they enact. And I think all of us must support this and let it go.
That's it for Business Life. I am Pius Kojo Baka.